Hello, I'm Scott D'Agostino and welcome to the last movies ever. Since there was no movies of interest came out last week, I'm doing something different this week. I'm counting down the 10 best movies since I've been at Lemoyne and the 10 worst. Before I get into it, I mentioned that it's not just best and worst of the decade so far, because like several good movies like Inception and Toy Story 3, and several abominations like The Last Airbender and Sex and the City 2 came out before I technically got here, so those were disqualified. Now to get onto the list. Number 10 on the best list is The Artist. The Artist is one of the first silent movie to win Best Picture since 1927. It's a great comedy, even if it does kind of rip off Singing in the Rain. John Dujardin gives a great performance. Number 9 on my best list is The Avengers. Now the plot's kind of thin, but it's one of the best action movies ever. All the actors are great, Joss Whedon's direction is great, the special effects are great. It runs a little long, but that doesn't detract from the film. Number 8 on my best list is The Social Network. Oh, I hate Facebook, but I really love this movie. David Fincher is one of the greatest directors to ever lived, and he showed it by making a boring seeming subject seem interesting. Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield give great performances as the founders of Facebook. Number 10 on my worst of the decade list is Zookeeper, starring Kevin James, written by Adam Sandler. I don't think I need to continue, but I will. Zookeeper is one of the most baffling movies I've ever seen. The trailers made it look like it was going to be a talking animal movie, but they're completely incidental to the plot. It's mainly Kevin James being a sad sack loser for 90 minutes and somehow landing 2 hot girls. Also, Adam Sandler voices an annoying monkey. Ugh. Number 9 is a movie that was actually nominated for Best Picture on my worst of the decade list. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. I loathe this movie so much. Just hated it. The lead child actor, Thomas Horn, is one of the worst child actors I've ever seen. I'm glad that his career was killed by this horrendous movie. Tom Hanks gives a career worst performance, and Sandra Bullock is nails on chalkboard awful. It's just an abomination. And it got nominated for Best Picture over my pick for Best Movie of the Decade. Now, number 8 on my worst movie since I was at Lemoyne list is After Earth, a movie that came out just last year. What happened to M. Night Shyamalan? The Sixth Sense was good, Unbreakable was great, Signs was okay, The Village was half okay, and then he just fell apart. His reputation is so awful they didn't even mention his name in the advertising, which wasn't enough to save this disaster of a movie. The worst part about After Earth is they put Jaden Smith in the lead, and that kid cannot act. Just cannot act. And Will Smith, he spends 95% of the movie sitting in a chair, talking in a weird southern-like accent. Number 7 on my worst list is Grown Ups 2. Adam Sandler, what happened? I know you've never been really funny, but since I've gone to college, you've gotten even worse. It's like you don't care anymore and just using your movies as an excuse to go to exotic locations or vacations. His next movie takes place in Africa, which makes me believe that it truly is that reason. Grown Ups 2 has an almost negative amount of laughs. It's so awful. Worst of all is Taylor Lautner, who manages to be even worse than he was in the Twilight movies. Yes, that may seem hard to believe, but it's true. Number 6 on my worst list is Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star. Yet another movie from Adam Sandler's god-awful production company. Bucky Larson is a shameless ripoff of Matt Stone and Trey Parker's Orgasmo, except there's literally no laughs at all. It stars Nick Swartzen, who you may remember from a couple awful Adam Sandler movies, as the title character. And it's one of the scariest movies that's supposed to be funny I've ever seen. It gave me nightmares. Number 5 on my worst list is Atlas Shrugged Part 2, The Strike. Atlas Shrugged is the worst book ever written. It makes Twilight look like Harry Potter. It's that bad. In Atlas Shrugged Part 2, The Strike, which is the second part of the book, manages to be even worse than the book itself and the last god-awful Atlas Shrugged movie. The actors are awful, the director is awful, the script is one of the 5 worst I've ever seen. Just a disaster. Now getting back to my best list, number 7 is Hugo from Martin Scorsese. Hugo is a tribute to Martin Scorsese's love of early film, specifically A Trip to the Moon. It features great child actors like Asa Butterfield and Chloe Moretz, and the great performances from adults Ben Kingsley and Sacha Baron Cohen. Just a delightful movie. Number 6 on my best list is Django Unchained, Quentin Tarantino's latest movie, and the only movie of his that came out while I was in college. I love every single Tarantino movie, even 4 Rooms, and Django is one of his best, featuring a great performance from Jamie Foxx and Christoph Waltz, and a great villainous turn by Leonardo DiCaprio as well as Samuel L. Jackson. Django Unchained caused a great deal of controversy, but it's so great you need to see it. 5 on my best list is going to be a controversial one, The Dark Knight Rises. A lot of people were angry about this movie because it wasn't as good as the last one. And admit it's not as good as The Dark Knight, but it's still a masterpiece. Bane may seem underused at times, but Tom Hardy's great. All the other actors are great. Just great. Number 4 on my best movie since I was in college list is The Master. Paul Thomas Anderson's critical expose on Scientology, except not really. Joaquin Phoenix is great as a shell-shocked veteran who gets seduced into the crazy cult. The late Philip Seymour Hoffman gives his best performance as the cult leader, and Amy Adams is great as the cult leader's icy wife. Number 3 on my best list is Before Midnight, the 3rd film in Richard Linklater's Before series. Before Sunrise was a great movie. Before Sunset is even better. Before Midnight is better than both of them combined. Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy have aged into their roles gracefully, and I can't wait for Before Afternoon in 8 years. Number 2 on my best list is The Tree of Life, a movie that a lot of people hated, but screw them. Tree of Life has a dense plot and it's over 2 hours long, but it's just so great you need to see it. Brad Pitt's great, Jessica Chastain's great. The special effects are amazing and so is the cinematography. Now to get back to my worst list. 4 is movie 43, a god-awful omnibus of a movie. Great actors like Hugh Jackman and Kate Winslet demean themselves with these horrifically unfunny skits. The only part that came close to being funny was the Kids and Machine skit, and that was less than 2 minutes long. Just look that up on YouTube and avoid the rest of this god-awful movie. Number 3 is Inappropriate Comedy, which was directed by the ShamWow guy. Yes, the ShamWow guy directed a movie. The worst part is that's not even the first movie he directed. Inappropriate Comedy, the whole shtick of the movie is it's a bunch of short films watched on an iPad. So yes, it's another omnibus movie like movie 43, except it makes movie 43 look like an actual movie. It's so awful. The best performance comes from Lindsay Lohan, who plays herself. You have been warned. 2 on my worst list is The Oogie Loves and the Big Balloon Adventure, a movie that I'm surprised exists. It's one of the worst children's movies ever. If you show it to children, the state will come in and take you away for child abuse and send you to jail. It's so awful. There's a bunch of famous people who are obviously coerced at gunpoint because there's no explanation. Cary Elwes is the worst of the guest stars since he looks like Dean Stockwell's character from Blue Velvet. A movie that should be shown to kids more than the Oogie Loves should. Now to get to my number ones. My pick for best movie since I was at college is Drive, starring Ryan Gosling. Drive is just an amazing movie. Everything about it, I loved it. The score, the acting, the directing. And it's even better if you've seen Shane because Drive's a gigantic homage to it. The fact that it bombed in theaters and it even inspired a lawsuit really gets me angry, especially since it got outgrossed by my pick for worst movie since I was in college. Jack and Jill. Adam Sandler. I know I've hated on you before, but Jack and Jill is the worst thing you've ever done and one of the worst things I've ever seen. At no point during this godforsaken movie was I laughing or even contemplating laughing. I just sat there with a stoned expression on my face like this. I was in the middle of a crowded theater who enjoyed it, which made me even angrier. Jack and Jill won 10 Razzies in the year it came out. Note the Razzies only have 10 categories. I helped ensure this because I hate this movie so very, 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 very much. But those are my picks for the best and worst movies since I was in college. Make sure to check out all the movies on my best list and avoid my worst list like the plague. Now before I leave, I like to point out that there's going to be another movie show coming next semester. I have a good feeling that Eric Cardiff's going to be on it. Come on, Eric. Come on. Come on. You're the man now, dog.
Thanks, Scott. I'm really looking forward to it. I know I can't live up to your great movie expertise, but I really am excited to come on next year, and I really hope that I make you proud.
Good. I'm Scott D'Agostino, and I'll see you at the movies.